back to another live edition of the Double V Sports Talk. Here with your boy Volzie and BuckHeels coming at you live on Twitch on both of our accounts, the BuckHeels and Volzie channels. We're also live on Facebook at Double V Sports Talk and on YouTube at Double V Sports Talk. Today, probably gonna have a little bit of a shorter show today. Um, just because we want to really dive deep into what's going on in the playoffs, and then obviously we got the college football um, national championship game coming up on Monday. So first and foremost, let's start off by talking about the games from yesterday. Matt, there's a very real possibility that we saw Philip Rivers throw his very last pass in the NFL. We may never see him throw another ball unless he's throwing it to one of his 48 kids. Um, if that's the case, what were your impressions of his season, leaving the Chargers and joining the Colts? I know he had a very emotional press conference afterwards where he talked about how special this year's been and the connection that they were able to have with his guys in the midst of not being able to have training camp in the middle of a pandemic and everything. What were your thoughts on his season as the first year Indianapolis Colt?
Well, I know I'll say before that he said that if the Colts want him back, that he would definitely come back. I know for at least one more year, but say that I think it was as expected. I don't think anyone expected Colts to be a Super Bowl contender, but everyone looked at this team to be a playoff team that might be able to make a push. So for them be able to make the playoffs, and they had a chance to win this game and they played a good game against Buffalo, coming back, staying with Buffalo and not letting the explosive offense just put up points on them. I thought it was for what my expectation was. I thought it was a good game.
No, I
For a
thought it
good
was a really
season, I
good
mean,
game.
too.
Yeah, I mean I'd like to see him come back. I'm a big Philip Rivers guy with the way that he goes about his business and handles things. And honestly, like he didn't. How many times in Philip Rivers' career has he been asked to throw the ball 50 times? They've always had, and every team he's been with has had a powerful running attack. And I think Buffalo did a really good job at stopping Taylor, forcing him to um, carry the ball 21 times for 78 yards. It's only averaging 3.7 yards a carry. He only broke one run for 20 yards. And I think that Buffalo's defense showed a significant improvement. However, I do think that moving forward, if the Bills are going to make a run, they've got to play better defense. They've got to do a better job of getting off the field. Josh Allen was almost flawless in that game. I thought he played one of his best games, but Buffalo struggled to get a run game going. Now we've talked about the Colts defense all year long on how it's been a top tier defense, but Buffalo didn't show to me that they're the second best team in the AFC, which is what we've been talking about, right? We all know
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City is the team to beat, but Buffalo was supposed to be the team that's the next best one. They didn't show that to me. I think that regardless of who they face in the next round, whether it be the Titans, the Ravens, or the Browns, they
They
really need to improve.
they showed some flaws, like they weren't able to stop matchup with any of the Colts tight ends, and that's going to give you a problem if you're playing against Mark Jackson, the Ravens tight end, or going against Travis Kelsey and the Chiefs, because those are two top tight ends, especially high. They're high appended in the offenses, and they couldn't even slow down any of these Colts tight ends. They were the biggest reasons why the Colts offense was in this game. And then the other thing that helped in other teams like Steelers, the Ravens, they're going to have success. The Colts did a great job when the front four was getting after Josh Allen. They stayed in their lanes and they didn't let him leave the pocket and able to have those rushing yards to help out the offense. Every time I saw them blitz him and bring down Josh Allen, there was literally nowhere he could run. If he tried to, there was someone that was reaching out, grabbing him, and pulling him down. So that was I thought the Colts, excellent. Like their defense was good, but the flaws of like the passing game, the front four I would say had a great game, but you need your whole defense. You need every level to be on to just be able to pull out a win in the playoffs.
Exactly. And we've talked about the Bills' struggle on defense throughout the year and how they need to get better. I think they didn't do bad in the rushing game. Now, obviously, Nakeem Hines broke off a couple big runs on him, averaging 12.5 yards a carry. But they've got to do better. They have to be able to do better to be able to move forward in this playoff. If they end up getting matched up with the Titans, Ravens, or because the next team they face, regardless of who it is a top 3 team in rushing. Because they're either going to have to play the Browns, the Titans, or the Ravens. The number 1 team in rushing right now is the Ravens. The number 2 team in rushing right now is the Titans. The number 3 team is the Browns. And so you're going to have to face a top rushing offense in the next round, regardless of who wins today. One of those guys being Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
One of those guys being Lamar Jackson. Why is my computer still yelling at me? Stop it. Now, the other ones that you got to look at is obviously Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Neither one of those guys are easy to stop. Like, it worries me to see if this Bills offense or defense can withstand to be able to make it into the next round. Now, obviously, the things that offense is doing, I think their offense is clicking at the right time, but they've got to get a run game going too. Stephon Diggs had 6 catches for 128 yards and a score. He was their offense. Don't get me wrong. Gabriel Davis had a big day there. Cole Beasley caught a bunch of
Beasley,
balls, but
yeah, Beasley came up big, clutch.
but at the same time, you know, these next matchup, the next round is going to be very tough if they cannot figure out, first off, how to stop the run more effectively, or just in defense in general, be able to slow down. Because we've all known this year that the Colts is not their strength has not been offense by any means. Their defense has kept them in games, and Philip Rivers has managed the game to be able to go through. The Colts have been a pretty decent running team throughout the year, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about Buffalo's defense,
I don't.
and their ability to go deep into the playoffs.
I would say also their slow start. I don't know if it was maybe the first game of the playoffs. Hopefully, it was just like, hey, it's a new setting, playoffs, different game. But their first 4 drives were 3-and-out punts. So their second drive was end up being an 8 play touchdown, but having 3-and-outs as your first drives are never a good thing, especially in a playoff game. Especially if you're going to go against the Chiefs and the Ravens, where Chiefs every opportunity they get, they're going to have a chance to put up points. And the Ravens, they're going to run the ball, so they're going to control the clock. So you're not going to have as many opportunities against teams like that.
Well, right now, I don't even think they have to worry about the Chiefs. They got bigger issues in the next matchup with the run game.
That's what I said. Like any Titans, if it's Titans, Ravens, or Pittsburgh, or Browns, like all those teams right there, they hold time as possessions because they're able to run the ball. Minus the Steelers, but they play those short pass games that still control the ball. That acts kind of like a run, so you can't have these 3-and-outs.
No, absolutely. So, let's go ahead and look at the next game now. I picked the Rams to beat the Seahawks. I just think this defense has been absolutely tremendous over what's going on. I was a little worried with Wolford starting there at quarterback for the injured Jared Goff. He obviously leaves the game with a concussion. And then Jared Goff comes in 2 weeks after having thumb surgery, goes 9 for 19, 155 yards and a touchdown. Not a very good outing for him. but impressive to see the toughness that he came with, toughness that he played with. Obviously, the big news in that game is Aaron Donald leaving with a rib injury. I hope that he's all right and will be able to play in the next round. Just hope that um, he's able to continue to come back from there. But that defensive front for the Rams gave Russell Wilson problems all day long, and that was impressive to see for sure.
I thought
Um,
both defenses looked good though. That was the thing for me. Both defenses looked really good. Because this was going into the game. I didn't expect Seattle's offense to struggle that much. Like the Rams took their defense up to another level, and that's what I was taking away from this game. This game was a very disappointing season for Seattle. Like how this game ended, and how Russell started off the season as an MVP candidate to getting bounced in the wild card at home, and Russell just going for 11 for 27. Um, I don't know how many times I've seen third. I think want to say there was one third down conversion I saw for a run, because the other times for the Rams in Seattle, both of them just no one could run on each other on third down. I was like, I
mm,
think they had more success just throwing the ball on third down.
yeah, no, it was
But
it was interesting to see. But it was a big time defensive matchup. I thought that it was a lot of fun to watch. Um, But my concerns are obviously like for the Rams moving forward are without a doubt. Can Jared Goff? How's that thumb holding up? How's he going to be moving forward? 2 weeks after thumb surgery, being forced to come in and playing, that's going to be sore. There's a potential to give him issues, and I know as well as anybody that when you push to come back before you're ready, sometimes you deal with lasting effects. Um, but how about Cam Akers?
mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, he put the Los Angeles Rams offense on his back and said, "I will carry you to the second round." And that's what he did. Being down early, they stuck to the run. They trusted their defense to be able to get stops when they needed to, and their defense got some big time stops. Obviously Aaron Donald getting those 2 sacks before he got hurt. Leonard Ford getting his 2 sacks. But it's concerning to see once again how this offense is going to look going into the next round, because as of right now, I think we're all predicting. I mean, unless the Bears win, they're going to have to face the Packers, and you need Aaron Donald at full strength to go against Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're going to stand a chance against that powerful offense, you need Aaron Donald back on. And then, regardless of how good your defense is, it seems like it's always going to be a shootout with the Packers right now. They're just too good offensively. You've got to be able to keep up with them. Now, obviously, if the Bears end up winning, then they're facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's going to be more of a defensive grind. I think they have a much better chance of beating the Bucks than they do the Packers. So I'm pretty sure if I'm the Rams, I'm rooting for the Bears over the Saints here, um, because I'd much rather see the Buccaneer team we saw last night than the Packer team we've seen this season, and especially the season Aaron Rodgers has been having.
Well, especially if you're
Uh,
seeing the Packers, you're going up to Lambeau.
Going up to Lambeau in January,
It's
that's
probably gonna snow. Probably gonna be in the teens.
usually is. But man,
I'm just
I
saying,
just I
my only
really hope
concern,
Aaron Donald's okay.
my only concern about the Rams, and it's also like a concern, but also like if this Rams defense, but like talking about if Aaron Donald's back healthy next week, but if this Ram defense plays like this, they're gonna be tough to beat because their offense won't have to do much. Not saying they won't have to do much, but they won't have to.
They won't.
They
They
won't have
won't.
to. The offense doesn't have to rely on doing much. It's just going to be Jared Goff if he ends up playing. Just don't turn the ball over. When you convert third downs, do your thing. Just don't convert the ball over. My only worry is I'm a big fan of Akers. I liked him. I especially liked him what he did against the Patriots, but his inconsistency to be that down back. Because if you remember the last game of the season,
Mm.
against Seattle, or I mean, this game, he ran for 131, 28 carries for 4.7. But his last game was against the Cardinals. He ran for 21, but only had 34 yards at 1.6 carries. You can't have that kind of game. He can't have those kind of games. And he's been like hot and miss. He's been like missing hot, and he has to stay hot in the playoffs. If he struggles and can't get the ball running and averaging less than 2 yards, it's going to be a very struggle for this offense. But I
No,
do give
absolutely.
the rate.
Especially with Jared Goff right now. I mean,
Yeah,
he struggled holding the ball yesterday. I mean, I question how effective he's going to be in the pass. And don't get me wrong, you have to be able to run the ball. I agree with you 100%. Cam Akers has to be more consistent. It starts up front with that offensive line of LA. They've got to do a better job being more consistent for him. But what happens if they get down?
yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure Jared Goff can really have a whole lot of zip on that ball once you start getting 15, 20 yards away. And
He had a lot of
I'm really
knockdowns.
concerned about that. Exactly.
I
I
bet
mean,
you
the,
were
the
excited
ball
to see that.
the ball was coming out a little slow. It was coming out
Uh,
low. It just didn't have that flick, and I think a lot of it had to do with his grip on the ball. I think a lot of it he was trying to because there's a lot that goes into thumb surgery, and there's a lot that goes into it. I'm sure he's got full mobility, but the biggest thing is the strength that comes along with it. Now, early on in the game, yeah, it's easy to hold that ball, but that thing gets worn out quick. It gets tired. It gets harder and harder to really grip that ball. And when you're coming back to really zip one in there, that those it wears on him. And so I really think Jared Goff has shown that he's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league, and what he did yesterday, and that was impressive to see. I know they were trying to rest him the best they could, and I hope Wolford's all right and moving forward. But at the same time, it's concerning to see the way that Jared Goff threw the ball yesterday.
what also was concerning was I think DK Metcalf. I think mine is like you take away his breakout touchdown in the fourth. He really was held down by Ramsey in this secondary. This secondary for the Rams played good, but like he was targeted 11 times, only got 5 catches. Like mine, if you take the breakaway touchdown out of that 51 yards, he was only for like 40 yards, 4 catches for 40 yards. He
Mm.
really needed to. This is a game he really needed to step up and put an imprint on the game and say, hey, you've struggled against the Rams and some top corners. Can you be that top receiver that people are thinking you should be? That no matter who's on you, you're going to have an impact. They might have you 1 or 2 plays, but you're still going to put your imprint. And he put an imprint at the end of the game, but at that point there was it really didn't matter because he needed to have that imprint. So I was very disappointed in DK. Russell too, but like DK was the person that he needed to have a big game for Seattle's to be able to for Seattle to come out with a win.
No, absolutely. Um, but it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, if I'm if I'm the Los Angeles Rams, I'm hoping for the Bears to beat the Saints, because let's go ahead and talk about the last game, because I was not impressed with the Buccaneers at all, not by any stretch of the word. You know, um, how about Taylor Heineke having himself a day? He played for the Panthers there a couple of years ago, ended up coming in for Cam Newton near the end of the season, showed a lot of flashes, but I think he's starting to find that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL, if not a very solid backup. I think he came out and played his guts out, especially for the Redskins, or sorry, for the Washington football team, to be able to run the ball at all. Antonio Gibson was held to 31 yards, averaged just 2.2 yards a carry. They could not run the ball to save their lives. They put it on Heineke's shoulders, and man, he made that an exciting game.
Mm.
Um, but Tom Brady went 22 for 40 for 381 yards and 2 touchdowns. But if it wasn't, I mean, and those numbers sound impressive, but I'm going to be honest, if it wasn't for Leonard Fournette, they lose that game.
Yeah, that's what
If,
the thing I take it for. Fournette came out big. Like what we haven't
absolutely.
seen. We haven't seen this Fournette in the regular season. Um, but playoffs he turned it up, and he was the key why. I mean, at the end of the day, I called for the upset. I was like, you know what, I'm taking the upset because I was like, I'm gonna take the football team just because one thing the Bucks have struggled was defenses, top defenses, and more front fours that can get after the quarterback without risking the secondary, and that's what we saw. Um, I don't have the stat in front of me if they how much the pressure was, but it was this. At the end of the day, I think Tampa might have been overlooking this game. You
I
know,
agree.
you
And
know
you know,
they're
I
not going to admit it,
I
but
picked Tampa Bay just because, and so I picked Tampa Bay because Washington football team didn't have Alex Smith playing, but it turns out it didn't matter. Taylor Heineke played as good a game as Alex Smith could have played. That wouldn't have made a difference. It turned out to be the run game. Now we obviously know the Buccaneers have had a very solid defense all year long. I was very impressed to see what they did on the ground, but I was disappointed to see what they did in the past. You know, they only sacked Taylor Heineke twice. They probably had another 4 opportunities that they missed on. They should have had him on the ground more often. They didn't get those opportunities done. But that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, as impressive as it was, it looked sloppy.
yeah,
It looked like they're a, they should be a lot better than they're playing right now. Um,
they
and
definitely need to be playing the off in the red zone, going for 1 for 5 in the red zone. I was like, when you have a big back like Fournette, and then you have 2 red zone weapons with Mike Evans to throw to and Rob Gronkowski. I don't know if you knew, Rob got targeted once for 0 catches. He was like
mhm,
not a. He was just. I was like, I don't. Did he just take the day off yesterday?
yeah, I mean, and how about the day for Cameron Brate? I mean, coming in and having himself a day there with 4 catches and 80 yards. You know, they've got 3 tight ends that they've relied on all year long between Rob Gronkowski and OJ Howard. And you know, when you look at it, Cameron Brate's probably the least impressive one on paper, but he's been consistent, and especially near the end of the year, he's really come on. And it looks like Tom Brady seems to trust him more and more. He was targeted 6 times for 4 catches, and just an impressive day out of him. Obviously, OJ Howard's been hurt and hasn't been able to play, but I've been impressed with him and what he's been what Braid's been doing for this Tampa Bay offense. Now, Mike Evans obviously having himself a big day. Chris Godwin having himself a big day. Antonio Brown obviously had that big touchdown where they just the corner stayed hard. He fit right over the corner. Safety didn't get over there in time to the pylon, left a little opening. But Antonio Brown is still one of the most athletic
Mm-hmm.
players in the league, and um, he still didn't have that big of a day other than that one big catch. But I was impressed with Leonard Fournette. You know, a lot of people have questioned his heart, how badly he actually loves football, the work ethic that he has, the effort he puts into the film study. I think that, especially with the rotation at backs that they've had in Tampa Bay, they've had a running back by committee back there with all the talent they have. Um, you know, I think Tom Brady's really made a big impact on a lot of these young players and the preparation they put into the game, the work they put into it. Because I'm going to be honest, you know, a lot of it, you know, they say that your preparation reflects your game performance, and it does. But one of the other big things that's overlooked is when you put your heart and soul into preparing for a game,
Mm-hmm.
you naturally bring out your heart and soul during the game, right? You play a lot harder in those games that you have prepared for so much more because it's more meaningful to you. And that's something, and not to say that this was a unmeaningful game or there are unmeaningful games, but it just comes with human nature, right? The more work that you put into something, in preparation for something, when it's time for that, the more you want it to succeed and the more you want it to work, and there's a burning desire to make that happen. And I'm curious how much Tom has had that effect in the locker room because that's who he is. You know, he's a competitor first. He's a fighter. You know, uh, I don't know if I've ever rooted for Tom Brady a day in my life, but at the same time, I respect him as a competitor. I respect him as a man because of that. And I respect anybody that plays the game with the passion that he plays it with because it's a lot of fun to see. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I want to know if that's the kind of impact that he's had on Leonard Fournette's career being in there. Now, I want to take a second to say how inspirational Ron Rivera has been this year.
Hmm.
You know, watching that game, I couldn't help but think of all the obstacles that man has faced in 2020. You know, all of us here have had to deal with the pandemic, and we've all had to deal with everything else going on in our day to day. But, you know, this man starts off 2020 by getting fired. He gets hired by the Washington Redskins. Right after he gets hired, there's this massive outcry that he has to deal with from the public to change the Redskins name, and he handles it with absolute class and grace.
Plus
Gives
the
support,
plus the organization scandals that were also coming up.
and then you had everything going on exactly with the sexual allegations and everything, having to deal with all that. All that happens within the first 2 months that he's there in the position. On top of that, he then is diagnosed with cancer. He's having to fight cancer not only through the middle of a pandemic, but also in the middle of a football season as a football coach. As a head football coach in the NFL, he's having to deal with fighting cancer. You know, they start four different quarterbacks throughout the season. Four different quarterbacks throughout the season. And he takes the second worst team in football, and takes them to the playoffs. That man has been an absolute inspiration. As a football coach myself, I aspire to be like that kind of man where no matter what the adversity hits, no matter what obstacles overcome, you look to come to the other side. I've been extremely impressed with him, and the grace and poise that he has shown. Um, you know, this world needs more Ron Riveras because in spite of everything, this man goes to work every single day with a good attitude and never once complained to the public. I'm sure he had his individual moments between his family, like we all do, but that man is a gem, needs to be protected. I wish the best for him and his family. And because of that, I wish the best for the Washington football team. They have done a tremendous job this year in the effort that they've done going from having the second pick in the draft, you know, between Montez Sweat and Chase Young and that front that they've had, um, um, Darren Payne and all of them. It has been absolute fun to watch what he's done for that defense. If they can find a consistent offense, this is going
That's
to
what
be a team to deal with.
that's what I was
If
gonna say. That's like if they plugged in. You say you plugged in Deshaun Watson in this team, and I know there's rumors about him, but like I'll give an example and why. I was like, if he was in this offense, I think this is a Super Bowl contender for how behind this defense and this offense they have pieces, and they have some weapons. But that's like your point. If they can just get a consistent quarterback, because at the end of the day, we know it's not Alex Smith, we know it's not Kyle Allen, and I don't know because they're too high to draft a quarterback. Maybe they can fall into a quarterback they can try to mold, but there's other high free agents. Matt Stafford is apparently going to be a free agent, or if you could trade him from the Lions, he's an option until you can get your future because this team has pieces that they can win right now. And I
absolutely,
mean, it's
and
safe for a team that
Maybe
went
Taylor
7-9.
Heineke's the answer.
There's a
Maybe
team.
Taylor Heineke's the answer. Like he did not lose them that game.
Yeah.
Them not being able to run lost them the game. It,
So
it's impressive to see. No,
what's
absolutely.
also impressive is a team that went 2-7 to finish the year 7-9. So
In the playoffs and make the playoffs,
yep.
win their division, go to the playoffs. I mean, and that's a credit to Ron Rivera and the ability to have this team. You know the most impressive thing with watching Washington football team right now is the way that they play for each other. You know, when Heineke went in and had that diving touchdown there on the pylon after he should have been sacked in the backfield there on third down, scrambles out to his left, dives for the pylon. The excitement that that team had, that all came together. Um, it's impressive to watch. These guys play for each other, and when that happens, it is dangerous. Ron Rivera has really um, put his stamp on this organization. And here's the crazy thing: that was year one in the middle of a pandemic. I cannot wait to see what he does when they get a full camp going, and he gets a full year to try to build the team the way that he wants it built.
And I know you know what happened when he took a 7-win team to the playoffs. What happened after the next year, right?
They went to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Absolutely. As a Panther fan, I hated losing him, but I'm excited to. I'm extremely thrilled to see what he's been doing there, and I wish him the best. I hope things end up working out with him. But that was a lot of fun to watch. Let's go ahead and keep moving on. Now let's talk about the first game that's going to happen today. We got the Baltimore Ravens going against the Tennessee Titans. We obviously Tennessee knocked out Baltimore in the playoffs last year because of the legs of Derrick Henry. They also played earlier in the season where Tennessee also won that game in overtime. That was one of the few games where Lamar Jackson was actually shut down, both in passing and in rushing. They meet for the third time now. It's going to be interesting to say the least. There's a little bit of bad blood here. And if the Steelers end up winning, which we'll talk about, then the winner of this game will play the Bills. If the Browns end up winning over the Steelers, then the winner of this game will play vice versa. If the Steelers end up winning, the winner of this game gets the Chiefs. If the Browns end up winning, the winner of this game gets the Bills. Both of them are running powerhouses. The Ravens have a kind of a three-headed monster that they rely on, and it all starts with the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson. The Titans obviously have the king, Derrick Henry, but don't let that overlook the work that Ryan Tannehill has done for this team in the air. That guy's played lights out. They got some electric receivers. The Titans are a middle of the pack defense, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game. Baltimore has been playing extremely well when stopping the run, except for when they play Derrick Henry. They've been fairly decent getting after the quarterback and what they've done in the passing when they're able to get after the quarterback. Matt, let me ask you this. Baltimore is 0-2 against Tennessee in the last two matchups in the playoffs and this past season. What does Baltimore have to do to win this game?
They're going to have to do what they're best at, run the ball. I mean, this team's is number first in rushing, averaging 191.9 yards a game. They're going to have to run the ball and then Jackson's going to have a big game because last time they played, he only had 51 yards for 3.9 carry. And I don't know what's with this Tennessee Titans because when you looked at this team statistically, they struggle against the run, they struggle against the pass, they don't put pressure on quarterbacks. But just because their offense can drop 30, they can win.
Oh, they hang on to the ball for the entire game.
Yeah. So, but they're gonna have to run the ball, and Jackson's gonna have to. He doesn't have to throw for 300, but he has to be able to pick apart this Titans secondary because this Titans is very vulnerable in the back half, and because they're not going to get pressure. So, on paper, Jackson should have a great game, but the thing is, what we've seen in big match situations against the Titans plus playoffs, he has to execute, and that's a big thing. Lamar Jackson will have to execute because during these games he's shown up. He hasn't shown up. Now defensively, when I talk about this game, we talked about the Titans. We know what the Titans want to do. Everyone knows what they want to do. Run the ball with King Henry and play action. They're like fourth in play action plays behind Ryan with Ryan Tannehill. This is why Ryan Tannehill was people consider MVP candidate. Plus with with Henry, I say King Henry now, since he was also a MVP candidate. And I want to say, I think he was probably if there was a voting, he was third, and Tannehill was probably fifth. But we know what they want to do. Now the thing for the Ravens defense is they picked up Campbell and Derek Wolfe in the offseason just because of their outing of last year in the playoffs. They couldn't stop the run. I think they
and honestly, like they focused on the offseason on trying to get better at stopping the run.
just
And
for this
honestly,
game.
it hasn't made that big of a difference in the year. You know, they went into the offseason to try to make sure that if this happened again in the playoffs, that they would be ready. And you know, I haven't seen it.
And that's why they finished 26th in the league by giving up 4.6 yards per carry. And this is going to be tough. I just, if my opinion, the one thing like defensively, Titans and the Ravens kind of Ravens and the Titans offense match up pretty well because Titans want to pound the ball. Ravens have a struggle on defense, but then for Titans,
I wouldn't say the Ravens have a struggling defense. The Ravens have a struggling rush defense.
I was more talking about this should be a high offensive game just because of the matchup. Talking about the Titans struggle to get pressure on Lamar, and their defense can be beaten, and the Ravens are going to be able to run the ball and just take the opportunity to throw in it. And then for Titans, we've seen the Ravens cannot have struggled against the Titans in the run, and then in the play action game, or when they're throwing the ball, Ravens were number one in blitzing, and they also
they averaged like 40. They blitzed, I think it was like 44% of the time.
It led the league, and we know what they did. They can they come in sacks and hitting quarterback. Well, Tannehill is like the fourth in their offense allowing sacks, so he's a very hard person to bring down.
Absolutely. So, a lot of that has to do with the play action. You know, they live and die by the play action as well because of obviously when you got Derrick Henry in the backfield, your first priority on defense is trying to slow him down. And then from there, when you play action, you got Ryan Tannehill with 2-3 very good receivers that he's able to get the ball to. Now, I will say this. I've been impressed with the way Lamar Jackson's played in the back half of the season.
Yeah.
I think he's done a tremendous job there. And because of that, you know, I think the Ravens are going to have the advantage in this game. You know, they went into overtime last time because the Titans stopped. They didn't slow down. They stopped Lamar Jackson. He threw for under 200 yards. He ran for about 50-some yards. They got after the Ravens backfield, but that's not what the Titans do consistently. There was only 2 games that I can think of where Lamar Jackson really just got shut down, that being one of them. I don't see that happening again. I do think that Derrick Henry is going to have a big day, but I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a bigger day. You know, I don't think their defense, they built their defense for this game. I don't think that's been as effective as they were hoping for. But I do think that the Ravens offense has been rather impressive. I think that they're going to end up doing a tremendous job at running the ball. And
I just think
it's going to be a good match.
The Ravens are going to be hungry and they're going to be pissed off because they don't want to get bounced in the wild card as people were considering this Ravens team could go against the Chiefs and beat the Chiefs. And the one thing that I thought that really helped this team, they dominated last year, never really had that speed bump to kind of like, hey, what do we need to do if we struggled? And that I think that was a big reason why they lost to the Titans because that was the first time they were ever big downs and you just saw the offense couldn't do anything. This year, they had the midseason struggles, but this last 3 to 4 weeks, they have turned on back like what we see the first 4 games of the season, how this offense or this team looked like a Super Bowl contender. they're playing great football at the right time, and they look hot. They look like the team we thought people were thinking in the beginning of the season.
No, absolutely. They are clicking on all cylinders at the right time. And I think this is going to be a really good game. Probably the second best game today. Let's go to a game that I don't think is going to be as good of a game, and that's going to be the Browns, the the Chicago Bears going into the New Orleans Saints. The Bears finishing 8-8 to clinch the one of those wild card spots. Obviously, the Saints win the NFC South. The Saints offense for the first time all season looks to be at full strength. They look like they're ready to come out. It's going to be interesting to see. They played earlier in the year when Nick Foles was the starting quarterback. They ended up going into overtime where New Orleans ended up winning on a field goal.
And I watched that
But
game.
that was
That
also
was an ugly game.
it was a very ugly game, and that was also, um, the New Orleans were missing a lot of weapons,
But I just say
um,
that was the
and
turning.
the
That was
they
the
they were
turning point.
who
The Saints. After that
the Saints.
game, that's
Well,
when
the
the
Saints.
Saints turned up, and that
Well,
was
they lost.
perfect.
They didn't have any
Mm-hmm.
receiving weapons that game. I mean, Alvin Kamara had 9 catches. Jared Cook had 5 catches. Those are their top two receivers that they had for that game. They're missing everybody else. And I think that made a big difference. Drew Brees still played lights out, going 31 for 41, but for 280 yards. He's always been a short um, pass complete, like just always dink and dime me down the field. The New Orleans rush offense was not very impressive. But Nick Foles, here's the big thing, right? Nick Foles was sacked 5 times in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Chicago's offensive line has now been healthy for a couple weeks. They've only given up 1 sack per game the last 3 weeks. Can they keep Mitch Trubisky upright? That's going to be my question there. He's been playing a lot better football. The Bears offense is starting to click, but let me tell you, they're going against one of the best defenses in football right now, one of the hottest defenses in football in the New Orleans Saints. They're top 5 in the stopping the run. They're top 5 in stopping the pass, and more importantly, they are really good at getting pressure on the quarterback and get hits on the quarterback. Let me tell you where I think this game is going to come down to. Chicago's had a mediocre offense this season, middle of the pack, right? They've had a mediocre defense, middle of the pack. But here's what they do really well on both sides of the ball. When it's time to extend the drive, the Bears find a way. And when it's on defense, when it's time to get off the field, the Bears find a way. That defense struggles 80% of the time. That other 20% that they thrive is on third down in the red zone. That's where they make their money, is they get off the field on third down and they don't let you score touchdowns in the red zone. They do a tremendous job there. The problem is they're going against one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. And that's what he does best, is he extends drives and he scores touchdowns. They also have one of the biggest weapons in Michael Thomas to be able to throw the ball to. He didn't play in the first matchup. I honestly, I don't like the Bears' chances here. They have been ineffective in getting to the quarterback as a whole. Khalil Mack, obviously Pro Bowler, 9 sacks this year, but they have not been effective in getting the quarterback. Not to say a lot of people can sack Drew Brees anyway because of how quick the ball comes out of his hand, but I think that this Saints team, they look hungry, they look fired up, they look, in my opinion, they have the best chance at making the Super Bowl in the NFC right now.
Mm-hmm.
Over the Packers because of this defense.
Mm-hmm.
Because this defense is so hungry, this offense has so many weapons, and when you're led by somebody like Drew Brees, anything is possible. I'm going to be honest, I don't like the Bears' chances in this game.
Yeah, and the thing, I think this Bears defense, I think this is the weakest playoff team. Would take Washington, the football team, over the Bears, and just because of we we all know about Chicago's defense, but they have been like at the beginning they strong, and then when you look statistically, Saints lead every statistic category against them, offensively and defensively. It's just been that's how much better the Saints are. I mean, was it points per game? The Saints, passing yards Saints, rush yards Saints, opponent points Saints, against the pass Saints, against the run known for defensively, sacks and hits on quarterback. I think
which
they're
they
like
haven't
fifth
had
or
this year.
something like that, or like they're high, but like Mac is their leader. Well, you know who's higher than them? The Saints, and as the second most sack team or sacks. And then I'm looking at the Bears, like they have 8 wins. 7 of their 8 wins were against teams that didn't make the playoffs, and their only win was against Tampa. And the only 2 things I can take away from that game was Tom forgetting what down it was, plus Tom is this 0-4 against Nick Foles. So the Nick Foles magic over Tom Brady also was a factor. So it's just it's going to be hard, I think, for the Bears because
And they could be without their leader, Roquan Smith.
Yeah,
Roquan
I was
Smith.
just their lead tackler too.
I mean, yeah, no, he had 140 tackles. He had 18 TFLs, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions. Led that defense every single snap of the game, and he may not even be playing.
Yeah.
Now, you know, Michael Thomas is obviously questionable with the ankle still.
I did. They said he will play though, and then
Yeah, and I'm sure he will. But it's going to be, you know, I don't like the Bears' chances at all. Do not like the chances at all.
And as I said, Mitchell's played good, but I mean, their last 3, minus the Packers game where they just got blown out. It was against the Jaguars, Vikings, Texans. Like David Montgomery has ran the ball, and that's the reason why this Bears team looked good. But like I said, Texans, one of the worst defense. Vikings, they have no front four. They're just been banged up and just playing awful. And then Jaguars, a 1-15 team.
Now let me tell you, here's where the problem with the Saints are going to come in, right? You know, they have obviously we think Michael Thomas is going to end up playing this game with the ankle, but they don't have Alvin Kamara. He's still out because of COVID protocols. They don't have Trey Hendrickson, who's inactive because of a neck. You know, he's their leading sack artist over there with 13.5 sacks. He has 12 TFLs and 25 tackles. I think that is absolutely crucial for who they are as a defense, you know, and that's probably going to give the Bears their best chance to be able to play and to play well up front. But like I said, I don't like the Bears matchup.
Yeah.
I see the Saints run away with this, even without Alvin Kamara and Hendrickson, and then we get to see a Drew Brees, Tom Brady playoff game, which we've all been waiting for, and you know, love to see it in the NFC
and I would,
championship. But
I'll say one more thing before.
But hey, I want you to think about this real quick, right? In one playoff, we could see in one season, one playoff run, we could see Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, and then either a Drew Brees, Tom Brady matchup versus Aaron Rodgers. We could see back-to-back weeks of 3 of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game play each other, and I'm extremely excited for that.
How about this though too? Take Jared Goff, switch him with like Ben Roethlisberger, and let's say I was trying to think else like Russell Wilson, and switch him with Philip Rivers. It would be like the NFC had the oldest quarterbacks to the AFC, the upcomers. Because you have all the.
No, really. I mean,
the average. No. What would the average age be? It would be. I want to say it would be.
I mean, there's only
40,
2 teams.
Yeah,
there's only 2 teams in the AFC that don't have somebody that's played less than. I mean, Ryan Tannehill's been around for a minute, but at the same time, he's still figuring it out.
He's in his prime, so.
Exactly.
I would say the only thing for the Bears.
Zach, let me just say, Tom is always a laughing matter.
The only thing for the Bears, like me not trying to fully disrespect them, is this gonna be tough. They're going to have to be on their game, and the biggest thing is their defense are going to have to play out.
Khalil,
You're not gonna
Khalil,
stop the Saints, but you just need to just get a couple third down, get a couple 30 and outs. Like
Khalil Mack, Akeem
has to go
Hicks,
off.
Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, and Robert Quinn have to be extremely effective. If those three guys can be effective, they stand a chance. But they're going to be their saving grace is that those three guys have to make up ground on the interior attack for the Bears. If they can be a presence on the inside, knowing that the Saints are going to struggle to run the ball, I'm going to go tell you right now, they're going to struggle to run the ball. But they still have Drew Brees at quarterback. I don't care if the freaking Drew Brees is playing for the JV football team going against the freaking Chicago Bears. If your quarterback's Drew Brees, you stand a chance. That's how deadly this man is with a ball in his hands. But those three guys, Robert Quinn, Akeem Hicks, and Khalil Mack, have to have the best games of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
This is why Khalil Mack's here. This is why he is with the Bears right now. He got tired of not making the playoffs with the Raiders. He got tired of dealing with all the other stuff. He wanted to change. You got to change. Khalil Mack, you're in the playoffs. It is your chance to show
Well, I would
why
argue
you're
over
here.
that. I think he wanted to say Raiders. It was more John Gruden was like, hey, I just don't want you.
I think it was a combination of the two not getting
Yeah.
along. I don't think it had a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I think it's more that, but like John Gruden also
But
moved
this is why the
wanted
Bears brought you in. This is why the Bears brought you in. Was for moments like these when you're going against these elite quarterbacks that you just spoke of moments ago. This is where you've got to have your game. I've been impressed with what Akeem Nicks has done all year long. He only has 3.5 sacks right now, but the pressure that he has been putting on quarterbacks and what he's done in the run game has been impressive to see. I mean, the man is a monster in there. You can't double team him because he's just going to end up breaking. But if you don't double team him, then he wreaks havoc in the backfield. It's going to be impressive to see, and I'm looking forward to this game, although I do think that the game will be over before we think, and it could end up going down to the wire. But I think this game's over by the time we start the fourth quarter.
I hope it's
So
not. I hope it's a close game, but
you and me both. But let's go ahead and talk about this is my favorite matchup on the week. All right, favorite matchup on the week. We got the Cleveland Browns going into Pittsburgh Steelers for the third matchup, second week in a row. Obviously, the Steelers dominated. And when I say dominated, I mean dominated the first matchup. Steelers end up resting a lot of the people last week, including their offensive leader Ben Roethlisberger, the league leader in sacks T.J. Watt, and the Browns end up winning at the end. I was a little concerned that they were actually not going to pull that out, but they end up finding a way to end up winning it there at the end. But they really struggled against a Steelers team that wasn't at full capacity. Now, obviously, if the Steelers end up winning this game, they'll face the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. If the Browns end up winning this game, then they will face the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Now, the Browns seem to have a little extra motivation. I don't think Juju Schuster has been able to learn his lesson yet. When they were struggling the most, he was going out there doing his TikToks, dancing on freaking logos. He had some words for the Browns this week. He added a little bit more fuel to the fire. The Browns are going to be coming out. But let me say this. First and foremost, they are without their leader of their team because of COVID restrictions. But
sometimes it's fancy.
but more importantly, they have one of the best offensive lines in the league, if not the best offensive line. And they are also going to be without a major component in this. Also missing their starting guard, Joel Batonio, sorry, Batillo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Close.
Batillo,
Nope.
Joel Batillo.
I know who you're talking
Uh,
about.
yeah, I mean, he has been an absolute wrecking force within that offensive line. He's been a key point, a key anchor within that offensive line that has been so good this year, keeping Baker Mayfield up, and then of course the work that they've done on the ground with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. He is out this week as well, and that's more concerning for me than them not having their head coach, um, and Kevin Stefanski.
I would think their coach being out, Kevin Stefanski being out, is more concerned than the offensive line, just because we've seen what Baker Mayfield has done seasons before. Minus, I know people are saying the different coaches, but let's just compare to last year. Last year to this year, this is the Baker Mayfield people were expecting, especially with
Absolutely.
the touchdown to interception ratio. Obviously, last week was not the best. A good game. Like what you used, he almost browned it up, or they
Almost
almost browned
grounded
it
up.
up. But Kevin Stefanski not being out there, the play caller, is gonna be huge. Because he's the one that's been in Baker's field. He's been the one that's helped Baker. Just like, hey, we're gonna be like they're like what he brought to Minnesota, like the Titans, a run focused team, play action. And so I want to see. We know the first quarter. I'm gonna just take out of the game because the first quarter, the first couple plays, first couple drives are gonna be scripted plays. I want to see second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, when Kevin will have no connection with the team because he can help set up. He's like, we're gonna do this. These are the plays we're gonna run at first. But in the second, third quarter, fourth quarter, you're not going to see any of Kevin Stefanski. You might see like him telling like I can't think of the name of the play caller. Hey, do this, but in the moment of the game, it's going to be a different person calling the plays to Baker, a different person. You're going to see them try to maybe we'll see more running. Hopefully, not as much passing because but well, hopefully because if they're running the ball, they're going to be able to run against this tough defense. Now, getting to that point, you're going against a Pittsburgh defense that has been lights on, leading the league in sacks. Number one, I think they're number one against the rush, and this is going to be tough. This is a game I think I think for you, you said this is your favorite game. I think this is the game because this is a game that's going to be in the trenches. Now, yes, they're missing their right guard, but this is a game that's like for you and me, a game that you want to see that's are won in the trenches because whoever wins in the trenches are going to come out favorable in this game.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's what it's going to come down to here. Is it's going to be whoever wins it up front. I think the biggest issue you're going to have the front seven for the Steelers. If they can effectively run the ball, then that means their play action is on. We all know that the Browns are best when they're able to play action. They're the best when they're able to really put the load on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Obviously, Nick Chubb does the majority of the load in the first half. They allow Kareem Hunt to come in near the end and really kind of take over from there. But we're going to have to see the Browns play their best football yet. And I don't think we saw that last week when they played the Steelers the first time. They still had a lot of mistakes there, a lot of things go on that they should have done better at. But they're hungry, they're motivated. They want it. They hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. They want to win this game. And they have is that we all know that the Steelers, if there's one thing that they cannot do, they cannot run the ball. So if you're able to run the ball efficiently, then you're able to hold the ball time of possession. That's got to be the biggest thing is they've got to be able to run the ball effectively. They've got to be able to continue drives on third down. They have to score when they get into the red zone, and they got to keep the ball out of Ben Roethlisberger's hands. Now, the Steelers have struggled on offense in general. So if the Browns can win the time of possession, I think that gives them the best chance of winning this game. Baker Mayfield has been hot at the right time. You know, they've this running tandem between the two of them has done tremendous things. Extremely excited to see what happens in this game. But if the Browns cannot be efficient on the run, they're going to lose this game big. They've got to win the time of possession. That's what it comes down to. And not only win the time of possession, they have to dominate the time of possession. I'm guessing if I'm the Cleveland Browns right now, my goal at the end of the game is to hold the ball for 36 minutes. If I can hold the ball for 36 minutes and hold the Steelers to holding it for 24, I feel like that gives me the best opportunity to win the game, because that means that I'm keeping my offense on the field. I'm extending drives against one of the best defenses in football. On top of that, you have to protect Baker Mayfield. You've got to do a great job of keeping him upright. They've done a tremendous job all season long. He's one of the top 10 least sacked quarterbacks in the league. Now, a lot of that has to do with the play action scenario. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they run the ball so much. But where they make their money is off of play action. They usually keep 6 or 7 guys in there on those play actions, which is why they do such a great job at being able to keep him upright. But you know, the Steelers are the #1 team in sacks when it comes to non-blitzing downs, which I always thought was the Rams. But in non-blitzing downs, the Steelers end up getting more sacks than anybody in the league.
They also
And
convert
a
their
lot of that has to do
blitzes
with
into sacks.
TJ Watt. They do, and that's just saying, and like that's just with their front. But
Yeah.
a lot of that
No,
has to do with TJ Watt. I think TJ Watt is the game changer in here. You have to neutralize him as a Browns offense.
I was talking about because I was looking up a statistic. I don't have it in front of me, but I was seeing it. Whenever they blitz, they have the best conversion from blitzes to get sacks. You know what I'm saying? So when they blitz, they get to the quarterback better than any team. So
100%. But you know, I think it's going to be a tough game for the Browns when the Steelers are at full blast. But it's not an unwinnable game. They got to play better than they played last week because the Steelers are going to be more at full blast. But at the same time, I think they're motivated. I think they're hungry. I think they're driven. And I think Juju may have just pissed them off enough where this could be a long day for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
and the person calling the plays, Alex Van Pelt. That's the person I want to see because no matter what, I was like, this offense for the Browns, they're gonna have to be on their A game, man. Changing play callers to someone that has been consistent. I feel like people are saying Kevin Stefanski is a coach of the coach of the year candidate for what he's done for this Browns team and just how impactful he's been for this team. To me, I just want to see that. But for for the game stakes, like I agree with you, the Browns are going to have to control the ball. They're going to have to run. They're going to have to play the one thing that is in Pittsburgh's hand. The Browns have a really good front seven, a really good front four. But the biggest thing for me is I'll turn it up. The biggest thing for me is the secondary. This Browns secondary can be half, and it's going to be because Pittsburgh is going to throw the ball, so it's going to be one of those things of can the Browns secondary. Hey, we've struggled, but we're not awful. I know they have had some injuries, but the secondary can come up and have some just break up some passes, play tight where they're not getting burned, kind of like situations, and just play good enough to average defense. I would say in the back half, their chances would be better.
No, absolutely. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in this game. I think it's going to be a great matchup. 2 storybook teams here, 2 big rivalries, and then Juju Schuster adding in a little bit more wood to the fire, a little bit more gas to the fire this week with the added talk. So we're let's go ahead and go on to let's go ahead and get our picks in now, and then we'll get on to talking about the national championship game. Matt, this rematch here with the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans, rematch of last year's playoff where the Titans ended up literally running away with it. Who are you taking here?
I don't think Titans get a 3-game sweep. I got the Ravens. The Ravens just look too hot. They look consistent. They look like a team that's definitely with the revenge on their back of their heads. They're gonna come out strong.
I agree with you. I think that the Ravens are going to end up taking this. You know, the reason they went in overtime earlier in the season is because they stopped Lamar Jackson. That doesn't happen very often. It's not going to happen today. Lamar Jackson's going to have himself a day. He's motivated. He's hungry, and he's got that team ready to play. I'm looking forward to seeing the Ravens at full blast and what they do there on the run. Let's go ahead to the Chicago Bears at New Orleans. Matt, who do you got?
I got the Saints. Also, I think Drew Brees is motivated. He's hearing the noise. People said he should retire. That he's starting to wash up when he got injured. He kind of didn't look like himself coming back from injury. He wants to prove something, and he wants to prove that he can take this Saints team to the Super Bowl. So I got Saints.
No, I agree with you. I think the Saints are too much of a powerhouse on defense and with too many weapons on offense. I think that if they can get clicking, they have, in my opinion, the best chance to come out of the NFC to go to the Super Bowl if they can get healthy, get clicking, regardless of how Michael Thomas plays today. If he plays today, um, I think that they win this one handily. Now, what about the last game tonight with the Cleveland Browns rematching the Pittsburgh Steelers, third matchup of the year, back-to-back weeks? Who do you have?
I got the Steelers. It's just hard for me to pick for the Browns. I mean, this is kind of big brother versus little brother until you can really see little brother take away this division. It's just hard to take away the top team. So I got the Steelers. It's trending really well for the Browns, especially when you're looking at Ben Roethlisberger might be retiring soon. But right now, it's still Big Ben.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to say it's Big Ben. I think it's little brother Watt and TJ Watt and company is the reason that they win this game. You know, the Browns still really struggled without the Steelers at full strength last week. It showed me that I don't think the Browns are ready for that playoff run yet. Extremely excited to see them in the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. But I think that they're still another year away. They've got to get this defense better, more consistent. Obviously, they're pretty solid up front, but they've got to do a better job in the back end of helping them out. I think that they're still, like I said, another year away from doing something really special, but this year should be a lot of motivation for them, should be a lot of drive, should give them a lot of confidence moving forward, showing that, hey, we are back in the playoffs. We are the Brown team of old, ready to come back and do something special, but I just don't think that they can match up with this Steelers defense at full strength. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's go ahead and talk about this matchup that we have on Monday. Okay. So obviously, we have the national championship with two of the most storybooked uh, teams of all time, with the Alabama Crimson Tide versus the Ohio State Buckeyes. A lot of people didn't think Ohio State should even be here, but they are. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters is they're here ready to go. They are currently 7-0 after beating Northwestern in the Big Ten championship. And then, of course, what we saw them do against Clemson last week in the playoffs, in the first playoff matchup. On the other side of things, you know, we have Alabama, who dominated Notre Dame and saw what they did there. It's going to be, you know, Alabama stands right now 12-0, obviously, with I think the best game of the year that they played was obviously against Florida in the SEC championship game, both of which are very high-powered offenses, which we've traditionally seen an Alabama team that's run the ball, kept it on the ground, but they've done a lot through the air. I think Mac Jones has done a tremendous job. Obviously, they have the Heisman Trophy winner in Devontae Smith. They have who I thought should have been the Heisman Trophy winner in Najee Harris at running back, who's also great at coming out of the backfield. But it's not like Ohio State doesn't have weapons too. Um, Ohio State's number 5 in the nation in rushing at averaging 272 and a half yards per carry, per game, and that's taking into account all these triple option teams that are still playing too. Alabama falls at 46, averaging 185 yards. In the passing, Alabama takes it there. They're averaging almost 350 yards per game, where Ohio State's averaging 276. Ohio State obviously being the much more balanced offense attack there, which is why they are 4th in the country in total offense at 545 yards per game, where Alabama is still a very respectable 6th at 535. Two very big offensive powerhouses. And I'm really excited to see, Alabama's averaging 48 points a game, while Ohio State's averaging 43.5 points per game. What is your takeaway on this matchup?
My takeaway is the trenches. I think this game's going to be. We know about, like you said, both have high-powered offenses. Defensively, I think both teams' defense. You don't really talk about their defense because especially Alabama, just because how their offense is. People's like they don't only have to mention their defense because their offense is put up 48. How many college teams can just put up 48 easily or average 48? We'll see this year. None. But there is one team that could. It's Ohio State. And one thing I like about Ohio State, I think they favor one thing about, I think it's funny because I think Ohio State offensively and defensively front is better than Alabama. And that's one thing Nick Saban has built his Alabama programs is in the trenches and on the defensive side. So where Alabama would normally win, I think, and they still are good. Not saying they don't. I just think Ohio State is better in the trenches. Now, defensively, let's say in a year or two, I think if this Alabama had this offensive power in 2 years from now, this might be the best team in NCAA history because their defense is good. They're not great, but they're very young, especially in the secondary. So I can't wait to see how this Alabama program starts turning next year to next year